Hello.
What up, everybody?
What's going on?
Salty Dogs Podcast coming at you
In the house.
from the basement. We're quarantined. I think we're about 6 feet away from each other.
I'd say.
Ish.
Practicing social distancing for sure.
It's kind of hard when we've got a sick bromance going on.
Yeah, it's true.
We're pretty tight brochachos.
We're cleaved for sure.
For this reason, a man shall leave.
No. Cleaving's a spiritual principle, not just marriage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man.
Well, I just meant like and unite himself to his bros. Man, check this out. This is an interesting situation.
What's that?
Well, actually, this happened in January, but it's not often that it's just you and I in the studio.
It's true.
If you're watching live, which, by the way, if you're listening too, after we've gone live, we go live on Facebook. So follow us on Facebook.com.
We preface before we...
That's right. But if you're watching live, we have a stand-in guest today, or stand-in co-host.
Yeah, Skylar couldn't
make it,
be here
and
with us.
Christopher
He's with us in spirit, and Chris gave some lame excuse for
whatever. No, it was a legit excuse.
It might have been legit.
So we have El Pingüino del Norte, our podcasting penguin.
Speak up, bro.
Yeah, say something. It's not funny for the people who are listening, but maybe it's a little funny for the people watching. But anyways, yeah, good stuff. Good to be here, man.
Yeah.
Still kind of some crazy quarantine stuff going on, but one of these days.
It is crazy, man.
A little bit.
I still don't know how I feel about it, but
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're not freaking out, you're not filled with fear and giving in to all the media craze, I think you're in a good place, because there are some who...
I don't think we should be afraid, man.
No, we definitely should not be afraid now. Yeah.
But...
well, sweet deal.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, we've got an agenda today. I don't have much else.
Semi-agenda.
A little bit of an agenda.
Yeah, we're just going to shoot the breeze.
Talk about some things.
Yeah. So, I guess, we never really got to talk about... You and I took a trip to the mountain...
We did.
And we never really talked about it.
We talked about talking about it.
We did begin to talk about it on one of the podcasts, and then we did what we always do, which is
nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
We did nothing with it.
We just meander off, and into our own little world or whatever. So no, I just wanted to talk about that, and then also, cast some vision.
Our mountain trip.
Yeah, the mountain trip, and
you've got a cave trip.
I mean, dude.
So if you've not been to our website recently, saltydogspodcast.com, we have a blog with multiple contributors, and we just recently acquired a new contributor who should have been one from day one.
Dude, you
but
were bugging me about
took
that
him a little while.
Yeah, I just had to get around to it, I guess.
Yeah, so Casey dropped his first blog, and it's called Lessons from the Cave, Part 1.
Yeah.
So you've got... With that being a part 1, you've got more coming.
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. That was I take a lot of trips, hiking and climbing mountains and whatever.
Lucky.
But that was honestly one of the most empowering and spiritual experiences that I had ever had, and I just took so much out of that. That I related to, currently for me, but I think something that's so applicable to a lot of people right now, and I was really happy to write that blog. And honestly, when I started writing it, I was like, because I was just like, all right, I'm just, Jason was getting after me, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And once I started writing it, man, I just felt, the Spirit of God just coming through me and writing that, and it was just exhilarating. And then I started writing the other part today. I don't know how many parts there's could it be, but there's just a lot to unpack. But man, it's really, I don't know.
It'll be a series.
It excites me.
And it'll turn into a memoir.
I was excited to write the second part. I mean, I wasn't excited when I first started the first part, but then I got excited.
That's how that works, man.
Yeah.
Sweet deal. Well, I'm glad that you get to have a platform, multiple platforms.
Yeah.
To be able to share what the Lord's doing in you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're going to do here tonight, too, because we'll talk a little bit about the cave situation for you.
Yeah, we can go into that, too.
Whatever.
The pit to the summit and everything in between, and just kind of cast vision for, the ministry that you and I are starting as well. With the help of some others, but man, God really put it on our heart to start this ministry, and
so we'll just put it out there. Yeah, speak it into existence.
He put a burning desire in my heart, and I know that this is like my life's work. I know that this is the route that I'm supposed to go, and so We're just going to do some casting, some vision there. It's going to be casual, man. This is a
Totes cash. Super cash. Super cash.
Yeah, super casual. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, well, find another podcast. You know, maybe
It's true.
It's true, I guess.
Yeah.
But sweet. So, man, we're going to have to like recap. We're going to have to walk back through it, you know, because it's been a long time. It was over a year ago.
Not over a year. I think we went in October.
Oh, you're right.
Was it October? September?
I think it was September.
No, yeah, it was the weekend before Labor Day, I think.
Yeah.
Because
It's true.
because it was like it was towards the very end of when the state parks and stuff are allowing people to camp and do all those things.
Yeah, that's
to like
right.
reserve the space.
Yeah, and I had just gone on a trip the previous weekend with Skylar. That's why we were going to have him on here, but he had some stuff come up. So, but I went to Pikes Peak, right? Which was cool. It was cool because it was pretty challenging. There's a lot of people doing it though, and and then you're like going through this grueling thing, just hiking. You're like, man, is this ever going to end? You know, and you start to reach the summit and you get up at the top and there's a restaurant up there with a parking lot with all these people taking pictures, you know, looking over the summit, taking pictures, and you get up there, you're like, you like come crawling over the top of the summit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, you didn't earn those pictures, man.
Right.
You know? Like,
Well, yeah, so
I didn't see you down there, you know?
Right. So we're in Kansas, and we border Colorado. It's about an 8-hour drive there into the state.
That's a hellish drive too. That's western.
It's pretty brutal.
That's western Kansas and eastern Colorado.
It's
bro.
like nothing going on, man.
Oh man, it's
brutal. Pretty brutal. You
It
gotta listen to some NF to get you through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first time I ever went to Colorado, we went and I think it was called like what was it? 4th of July Trail. I think that's what it's called, or Independence Trail. I can't remember what it's called. Something like that. And we went and we hiked, and it was the first mountain I ever summited. And it was only like 13.4 or something, but it kicked the living crap out of me.
Yeah.
And took us forever. And I put every ounce of my being into getting to the top of that mountain.
Yeah.
And of course I came back and I was leading pastoring whatever small church at that point in time. I call it small, whatever. And of course I came back and like preached the whole sermon on like, if you want to see things you've never seen, you've got to do things you've never done before. And like this whole, the huge, this, the typical pastor summited at a mountain sermon. Yeah. So, but we did that and, dude, it kicked our asses. And then, a storm was coming in. So we got off that mountain quick.
You should have.
And then we went and we got a hotel room. We just crashed, bro. I think we slept for like 12 or 14 hours. Well, the next day we actually went to Pikes Peak and we drove it. Oh. And so
you were one of those guys.
Well, I was one of those guys with Pikes Peak, but I had summited another mountain the day before.
Man, Pikes Peak's a 14er, man. That's a oh man, Skylar and I were doing that one, and I'm telling you, and the reason I wanted to talk about the mountain trips too is because like there is so much and those kind of things that you do, whether it's like descending into a cave or hiking up a mountain, there's so much content that you're experiencing and that you can relate to your spiritual experience as well, and like, man, I just remember we were walking up, and once you got to like the last bit of it, that was the toughest part, because you'd just been going for, I think it took us like 6 hours or something like that. I'm not sure, but we were hiking for a hot minute, and you get to the top, man. And then all of a sudden, like, the top's there, but like everything's just giving out. Like you just don't even want, your brain's telling you to stop. Yeah. Your body is just like, your legs are, and then you're like, and as you get to the top, it gets steeper and steeper, and the turns get harder and harder, and you're like going.
Did you guys have to scramble at all when you got there?
No, it wasn't any scrambling. And like I said, there was a lot of people there. So that experience was different than our experience that you and I had. Yeah. Just because, there's just a lot of people there, and it was cool still. It was still cool to do a 14er, and to accomplish that and get to the summit. But man, honestly, I took, when you and I went, like we only saw like, I think 2 people or 3 people.
There was just a few.
There was
on that one.
Select.
I feel
few.
like that was kind of an obscure.
It really was.
Place. It's not a typical. I don't know if it's typical.
No, it was the Santa it's the Sangre de Cristo.
Sangre de Cristo. The
It's
blood
part
of
of
the blood of Christ
the blood
mountain
of Christ,
range
yeah,
in
man,
Colorado.
How appropriate.
Yeah.
But what was the name of that little town? Do you remember? Westcliffe,
Colorado.
Man.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing there.
Yeah.
But that experience to me, and I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that the other experience wasn't spiritual, because it certainly was. But that experience that you and I had, man, just like because it was obscure and because it was it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not like one of those real big tourist traps. You know what I mean? And that to me, the Phantom Terrace, man, like that was bomb, bro. That was bomb.
Well, it was funny. So first of all, I had gone to Colorado that one time and had that mountain experience. And I don't know if our listeners, if they've ever been hiking and have gone to Colorado or not, or been to any place where there's mountains or outdoors, whatever. But I had been for like 2 years trying to go on a trip back to Colorado because I just want to get out there. Part of that was me just wanting to go and just leave it all there. I wanted to physically exhaust myself to the point to where I just couldn't do anything else, right? Like I want to just completely pulverize my body by exerting as much energy as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And at the same time, achieving something and seeing something I've never seen before. And that's why I like hiking. That's why I like going to mountains. And of course I've only been to 2 now, but still it's a freaking awesome experience.
It really is.
And so you were in a place where you probably need to get away. And we went and had a long drive, had a lot of laughs.
Oh, man.
You slept on rest stops and did all that crazy crap. But,
We did.
But getting to that mountain and we didn't really even know where we were going. It's kind of like a blind situation.
Who did we ask? Did we ask Joey's dad?
It was Joey's dad, and he told us about.
He was like, yeah,
Alvarado Campground is where we ended up.
Yeah, yeah.
So I booked the spaces, didn't know what we were getting into.
Yeah.
Show up, we sleep in our hammocks between the trees.
Yeah.
And they were aspens, right? Aspen trees?
Quaking aspens, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. There's another descriptor I didn't know about.
Well, do it right if you're going to do it.
Right. But, we get there, we sleep, we get up early, we make the cowboy coffee on the campfire, do all that stuff. And then we take off, bro. And we have no idea what we're getting into and no idea where we're going. And just the one thing that I remember, and I knew this would happen because it happened the first time, and you get to see things you've never seen before because you begin to get a perspective you've never had.
Right.
The more that you climb and the higher that you get. And so you start at the bottom of that thing and you just walk and walk and walk. And yeah, you're taking in the beauty and you're seeing things like there was a waterfall and just nice cool water and like all this crazy stuff that was happening. And but just the thing that I remember is like you just keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And for me, the rush is the higher you get and you just realize like, man, we are way the heck up here.
Yeah.
And like you look down at the valley and you're just like, holy crap, we were down there like 4 hours ago. Look how freaking high we are. Look how far we've come.
Yeah.
And just that.
Once you hit alpine, like you are up there, that's above tree level.
Yeah. I was going to say, tell people what that means.
Yeah. The alpine means, where trees don't grow. You're above the tree level.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, perspective, man, that was a big part of it, and the elevation of your perspective, and how that higher ground, achieving higher ground, it actually broadens your perspective. You can see further, man, know, and the valley, man, I remember we were driving through there, like, we were driving through the valley and the valley sucked, man. It was just ugly, Well,
you know what I don't remember it being so ugly, but what I don't like about driving in Colorado is that you have to that I was driving. And so I wanted to look around and look at all the mountains. So when you're driving through the mountains and you're starting to see these huge peaks, like I'm just blown away by that stuff. It's so majestic. It's so beautiful.
It is, man.
I'm just in awe, completely in awe every time I go. And I just stare up at the mountains. And when I'm down there, I don't want to be down there. I want to be up there.
Oh,
like
right.
I see the mountains. I'm like, that's where I want to go.
Right.
That's where I want to be. And so it's not so much that it sucks, I suppose, as much as when I'm there, I want to be somewhere else.
Right. Well, I mean, just comparatively speaking to where, where we started camping and then when we started walking, like in the tree line and everything was so green and so lush and the waterfalls were rolling and everything, like in the valley, everything, as we were driving at the base and driving through that valley, it was just it just seemed desolate to me. The grass was all brown. And,
oh, right. Yeah.
And it was just like, man, like how oftentimes in our lives we go through valleys. You got to go through valleys if you're going to the mountain, and the mountain is a place of change. It has been, and it is a place to change, and biblically, in the biblical context as well. Talk about, the transfiguration, the crucifixion, Abraham taking his son up, like all these places, like all these things that happen, these really key moments, a lot of them happen on the mountain, and back in the ancient times, I think, whoever could worship their God on a higher mountain peak meant that their God was higher than the other gods, when they used to make their sacrifices on the top of the mountains, and it's like one of those, booyah, got you type of things. And the sacrifice of Christ, I mean, even that, and so, but yeah, it's a place of change, and I had brought a lot there, when in our trip, and this was like right when all the divorce was happening, and dude, just like in this real surreal, it's just all I can like describe is just like empty space, you know what I mean? That's not filled by something that was there before, and deep hurt, but when you conquer something like that, and that the Phantom Terrace wasn't like a 14er or anything. It was a long hike. I mean, that's a long hike. I mean, we got, halfway up.
It was supposed to be like a 12-mile round trip.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long hike. 12 miles is a long way, especially when you're hiking, because it's not a straight line. You know what I mean? Like that's a long hike.
Well, the average human takes what, like 25 minutes to walk a mile?
Yeah.
So if you just...
as the crow flies.
The crow flies, not ascending with a ruck and...
Yeah.
You're going up and you're in elevation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal.
It is. And it can be, especially if you're not accustomed to it. And, people that live on the mountain, man, like they're accustomed to that, and we live, we're flatlanders, you know what I mean? We're not accustomed to that. And so that comes into play. You're in a place you've never been before. And all of a sudden that altitude, that environment, I mean, think about time spiritually in places you've never been before that you're not accustomed to, how tiring it can be, in those places that you've never been, and how that just wears on you, and the stuff you're carrying with you.
Yeah.
And I imagine, Isaac carrying that bundle of wood up, Abraham's got nothing on him. He's walking up there. Isaac's got to carry all the wood, and I imagine just those burdens that we bring, man. And so, and to me, when you summit or when you get to that peak, that's a place of unburdening, it's a place of transformation. And Ephraim Taylor, who's going on the trip with us, he's from Oklahoma. The guy was on Tree or the Ninja Warrior. He's been
was he?
He's been on that show like 4 times.
Dang.
Yeah, dude.
He must be swollen, huh?
Yeah, so he does those kind of trips, and he was saying, like, the point of it is to come back changed, or, don't come back at all,
Wow.
And to intently have a purpose that you're going up there for, to be intent on what you're bringing to God.
Was he the one that was
to meet him there?
So we put together a little chat messenger thing. He was the guy that said, "Hey, I want to talk about what's the purpose of us going and what we're going to accomplish through the trip."
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Because when I saw that, I was like,
it's not
what
just,
do you mean?
Yeah.
But now I understand.
Yeah. And so just to cue our listeners and our viewers in, so we're, God has put a ministry in my heart. Once I started doing these trips, I climb trees, and everything that I do whenever I climb and whenever I do these things is so spiritual. You know what I mean? I just feel so connected to, the original intent, which was to be connected to God, connected to each other, and connected to nature as a whole, to creation. And whenever I do those things, I just felt super connected. And so after what I've been through this past year, actually my whole life, you know what I mean, has prepped me, to be able to do this. And so we're going to start a ministry, and I pitched this to Jason, or I just told him, I was like, man, this is what I'm doing. And Jason was like, yeah, I'm on board for sure. And so I'm starting a ministry, and it's called Ascension Ministry for Broken Men. And so essentially what we're going to be doing what we're going to be geared towards, is people men who have struggled with like depression, especially addiction, alcoholism, things like that. And then men who have been devastated by divorce, because in those things, those three things that I just listed off are debilitating in a lot of ways. They make you feel absolutely worthless. Depression and anxiety is just like it's a smothering feeling. Addiction, man, like why can't I overcome this? Alcohol, and drugs. Why can't I overcome this? Like I said, man, I remember times, man, like I've been on my knees, I've been in tears in the night, just tormented by why can't I stop, crying out to the Lord, man, and it's horrible. It's horrific. And then divorce, man, is just one of those things that, especially if you're the recipient, and is one of those things, especially as men, you know what I mean? You just feel like you utterly failed, and failure in our minds, the way that we grasp it is like one of those knives, you know what I mean? That cuts really deep, and it makes you feel you're not worth it.
Well, you take it on as your identity rather than it's something that has happened to you, or rather than failure being an experience, we take it on as an identity.
Right.
I'm a failure rather than I have failed.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so you transfer that to you, and it makes you feel just absolutely worthless. And I find, and that's where I was, man, for a long time until recently, and God shed light, man. And gosh, what he's been doing in my life recently. I mean, I'm talking real recently, like the past 3 weeks,
right.
The things that he's done, dude, like I can just feel, like I said, connectivity, and I can feel change. I feel different, for the first time in a long time, not just like saying, oh yeah, I'm different. You know what I mean? Cause we can say that all day long, but just the way that I've been interacting and the way that things have been happening, man, I just feel them moving. And dude, I can't remember a time in my life where, I mean, like Teen Challenge maybe, but still, I was still troubled. But now, man, like even in the face of these circumstances of a life destroyed, you know what I mean? Of a life that I burnt to the ground. I find peace and beauty in that, and beauty in those ashes, man. Like that verse comes to life, for the first time, the beauty in ashes, like where everything has been burned down, but man, you can see it, it's like this beauty, and you can recognize that and prophesy that. And I attribute a lot of that to the trips that I've taken. I really do. Because it was a freeing experience to me. It was an empowering experience, because when you give men who have identified themselves as failures, or have had people identify them as a failure, or, ridicule them, or, walk out or abandon you because you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, or you have trauma, or these things, and like where people don't want to get their hands dirty, you know what I mean? Messing with you. Yeah. You just, because nobody wants to be around you, you feel isolated, you feel alone, you feel that, and then you think that that's true. I'm unlovable. Yeah. I am a failure. This will never get better. I'll never get past this. And so what I found in these experiences, climbing these mountains, and especially in the cave, man, was when you conquer something, when you give people that have that mentality something to conquer physically, and not just, oh, we're going to, do a little tourist thing, or, have like a tour through a cave or whatever. I'm talking about like give them something gnarly to do, man, so that you have to man up and do it, and man, and I know, I mean, I was a little bit in better shape because I climb all the time. Sure. But that was a tough hike, and it was kind of brutal in some ways. On some of those on some of those pitches, it was brutal. Yeah. For sure. And I know when you go through that and you put yourself through that, just like you were saying, like, you wanted to exert your every effort that you had to conquer something. And I find that when you give men that have the mentality of I'm a failure, I'm a piece of crap, they're right. They're right about me. This is who I am. Right. When you give them that experience, man, that's an empowering thing. Yeah. And it translates spiritually.
Sure. Well, this whole thing is like multifaceted. One, not every man has ever had an opportunity to get away and go spend some time in nature. Especially not with other dudes, right, or other guys. But having that opportunity to go do that, presenting an opportunity to conquer something, the idea of conquering, like I think about that all the time. I often feel like, I want to try and stay in shape. I want to try and run. I want to do all these things. But to just make that a normal part of my life, it's really difficult. But if you give me like a challenge, or if I say, hey, I'm going to run a half marathon in October, which I'm supposed to be doing, starting to work towards that, been running, right? Got sick, getting better, getting back into it. Knowing that we're going to be going to the mountain in June. Like, I know, hey, I got to get my ass in gear.
Yeah.
I got to start working out. And so if I could put my mind to something and then do what it takes to make sure that I'm in my best shape, or doing my best to train to accomplish that, like, it's a lot easier than me just trying to make something a normal part of my life. So there's the challenge aspect, which I think is fantastic. So I want to feel challenged. I want to go give my everything. Like, I want to accomplish something. I get to do it with one of my best friends in this world, right? That's a big deal. But being able to get out into nature and get on the mountain and, like, touch the flowing water of this, like, cold snow melting off the top of the mountain, hearing the rush of the water, being down by it. It's just, the nature experience is so difficult for me to express, but I freaking love it. The other aspect to this entire thing is getting that community of men to do something together,
right.
The solidarity, right? And then also what makes it even more powerful is that there are people like you and me who've been through what we've been through in different ways, but have lived lives with addiction and all kinds of stuff that have just plagued us. Guilt, shame, pain, that kind of thing, all through our lives. And so you get guys who have kind of been through some of that. We're not all the way out on the other side, but we're continuing to make progress. And so then essentially what we're talking about doing is inviting other guys who say, yeah, I need that.
Yeah. And that was the purpose and part of the title too, is I wanted it to be
for broken men,
be expressed what it was for, and I'm certainly not shooting down guys that want to go to the mountain, but honestly, I'm trying to minister, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to minister by experience, because I know firsthand, the darkness that can exist in those kind of things, man. And I don't want men to live the rest of their life doing that. And so in the title, ministry for broken men. For broken men. And I want to cultivate, a place, where if you need to, whatever you need to do, man, to get that off of you, if you need to weep, if you need to cry out, if you need to scream at the top of your lungs, you need somebody to talk to, you need someone to minister to you, like I want to create and cultivate a place vulnerability, because as men, when we even that word is probably making some guys cringe right now. Oh, vulnerability, ugh. Right? Exposure,
yeah.
And that's a key element in mountain climbing, in caving, in tree climbing, is the word exposure. And what we do in rope access is we mitigate that risk, because there's always a risk of exposure. Mm-hmm. When I'm way out far on a limb, mm-hmm. And my angle is tight, I'm exposed, mm-hmm. And I mitigate that by skill and by training. Mm-hmm. When you're descending 125 feet down into the darkness next to a waterfall, son, that's exposure. You know what I mean? Like, you're completely exposed and vulnerable. And in those moments, dude, I feel, man, in that exposure. And when you mitigate that and you conquer it, like, there's something inside of you, man, that comes alive, because you're living in that vulnerability. You're living in that exposure. You're mitigating it and you're experiencing it. And I wrote about that in my blog, which was one of the most powerful experiences, was that I chose to trust my anchor point. And if you haven't read the blog, I mean, go read it. I'm proud of it, because I'm proud of what the Lord did through it.
So let's just talk real quick about that. You got an invite to go to a cave in Georgia.
Yeah.
And you can only go down by rope access.
Right.
And you have to have the training to be able to do it.
Right. Well, you have to be really familiar with knots, with rope access in general.
Okay.
And I've been climbing for a long time. The guys that I went, climbing for a long time, one of them's a really awesome rock climber too. He does that stuff all the time. So he had that kind of experience.
Nice.
And so me, and I got to rock climb for the first time I was out there too, which was another thing, you know what I mean? And so, so my buddy Nick called me up like 4 days before the weekend, and he was like, man, you want to come bounce this pit? It's called the Fantastic Pit. So it's the longest pit, or it's the deepest pit in the continental United States. It's 600.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's 600 feet straight down into darkness.
So did you guys get to the bottom of it?
So I didn't. So the water was going a little bit crazy.
Oh, okay.
Because we got there right after it rained, and right after it rained, I mean, the first drop, which is called the warm up pit, which is the one that I did, is 125 feet. That's the one where 2 Florida students died,
right?
Because they got tangled in the waterfall. They died of hypothermia. That's before you even get there. So you have to descend 125 feet. Then you have to navigate through the cave, and then there's parts where you're literally walking across like what looks like a path, and you look down close, and you got the wall here with your anchor points. You clip in every time. You're always secured, because one slip, dude, you are done, son.
Right.
Yeah, it's that serious. So you have to get across that, and then you have to ascend 40 feet with all of your gear. And then you have to walk around. So the only thing I can explain is like a ledge. It's like a boulder, and there's a ledge, right, that wraps around it, and you got the ropes there that are preset so you can clip in.
Right.
And you are literally, when you get there, you have to shimmy around that boulder, and you are looking 600 feet down.
Oh my gosh!
And it was crazy, man. And then you have to set up all your anchors, and then you have to descend 600 feet, and there's only one way back up.
Right.
Ascending. Do you know 600 feet is the height of the the Statue of Liberty?
Dang.
That's how high that is.
Holy moly.
And the longest or the highest.
So how long did that whole thing take you?
We were in the cave, I think 6 or 7 hours, but yeah, which is crazy. But Markley was the only one that did it, because he's crazy. You know what I mean? He's legit crazy.
How many guys went?
Me, Markley, and Taylor.
Okay.
And so Taylor opted out too, because it was just too
he's just
gnarly.
like, I'm not gonna mess with it.
He's bounced that pit before, and it was just too gnarly.
Too crazy with the water.
Right. And so also we didn't have a long enough rope. So, and this was the thing that sketched me out, you know what I mean? And as a first time caver, like that was my first experience. And to do the Fantastic Pit on your first caving, dude, that would be, it's gnarly. Right. Like, I mean, even that 125 foot descent is still gnarly.
Is it like climbing Mount Everest on your first hike?
I mean, right? It's something like that. I mean, it's
let's do this, bro.
It's a caver's dream, and they keep that secret. The society there in Georgia, the caving society, they have caving societies all over the United States. But
you guys weren't wearing like hoods and sacrificing things.
No. It's a secret. It's a secret society. They keep those really, really secret, because they don't want people down there, because it's dangerous. It's dangerous first of all, and then they also don't want tourists there. You know what I mean? It's a special thing, and that pit, the Fantastic Pit, that's like a caver. Like if you do caving, like here in the continental U.S., that's your dream right there. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's super hardcore. And but we didn't have a long enough rope, so we had to connect. We had a 400-foot rope, and then we had a 200-foot rope. So we had to connect them, which meant that on our descent and our ascent, we'd have to stop in the middle and change our system over the knot while you're suspended. Yeah. Untold hundreds of feet off the floor.
How do you do that?
Well, it's part of rope access. Sure. But and it was just, to me, it was too gnarly. And this is one of those things with exposure and mitigating exposure, is like knowing when to say no. You know what I mean? And I felt uncomfortable, and I was like, man, I feel like a chump. You know what I mean? But Markley looked at me and he's like, dude, if you even have a single doubt in your mind, don't even do it, because that's when bad stuff happens. You have to go in there and you have to walk in confident that you're going to do it. Well,
let's talk a little bit about our next trip then, because second week in June we're going back to Westcliffe to finish that 12-mile loop, to conquer the Phantom Terrace. Now,
and this is part of that,
so
understanding when.
Exactly. So let me tell a little bit about that story. I was I did some working out. Maybe I dropped a couple of pounds a month or two before going, but I knew that I hadn't trained as much as I could have, busy and all that fun stuff. But I told myself that I was going to make it to the top of that freaking thing, right? I was like, whatever, we're going to do it. I'm going to kick ass. I'm going to leave it out there. I'm going to exhaust myself. I'm going to do as much as I can, right? I was excited about it. We didn't know what we were getting into. You know, we're looking at the trail and I'm trying to pull up the map. Like, I don't know how to read that crap. I'm like, oh, okay, we're supposed to go here and do this. Well, we're going. I don't know how many hours we're in, 3 or 4 hours into the hike or something like that. And we finally get to the lake, which, we're getting high, we're getting up there, but I have no idea where the trail goes.
Yeah.
And my leg's starting to cramp up.
That's why it's called the Phantom Terrace too.
Exactly.
It's because you can't see where where you start going across. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what happened was we ended up going as far as we can, because I was like, dude, if we don't get a descent soon, like, I'm not going to make it. Yeah. And so you started saying, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I was like, nah, let's just go. And you had the wisdom enough to say, hey, man, like, you're low on water. If a storm comes, like, let's just turn around. And I felt bad because I wanted you to be able to get the full experience. Right. But you had enough sense to say, hey, let's just turn around. Like, this is cool. I'm good. And
you don't want to be caught in a storm on the mountain, bro.
Which I really appreciated. Yeah. So I got to the point, I literally hiked until I couldn't hike anymore because of pain in my leg.
Yeah.
So we turn around, we start to go down a little bit, and we run into this guy who's been out in the mountains for like how many days? 13 days or something crazy?
Was out there, yeah, he was out there for like 2 weeks hiking that mountain range.
So it was like his life dream, right? So he saved up a bunch of money, wasn't working, and he said he's
like, y'all want a shot of whiskey? We're like, no, man. He's like, you want to smoke some weed? We
were like, probably not. Not a good idea.
Nah, we're all right.
So we turned it down. We actually turned down the weed and the drink on the mountain.
Turning down drink, man.
Hey, and it would have been legal there too. So, anyways, we turned it down, and he was a nice guy. We start talking to him, and we say, yeah, man, we didn't know where the trail was going. Like, we got up there a little bit. He goes, oh man, yeah, that happens to everybody. Like, he said, you see that little ridge up there? He goes, that's called the Phantom Terrace, bro.
Tiny ridge.
He said the trail disappears and people get to where you get and they turn around. So I didn't feel so bad, but the whole idea behind that is that we're going to go back and conquer the Phantom Terrace. So
we're going to do it.
I'm training. I'm getting my ass in gear. Yeah. And we're going to make it happen.
Yeah, I'm ready, man.
So basically what you did is you invited some other guys to be a part of that. But based on that vision of this ascension ministry for men, or for broken men, to get some other guys out there to go do this. But again, to make it a ministry where, we can get out there and whatever we're dealing with.
Yeah, essentially, semi-annual. I hope, dude,
I'm excited about that, bro.
I am. And I want to prophesy that into existence, man. I know God's good, because I don't even want, I'm so sold on this, man. I don't even want to work anymore, dude. Like, this is all I want to do.
That would be amazing.
I want to cave. I want to climb. I want to do that. That's all I want to do.
I just want to play video games for a living.
Yeah. And and taking guys up trees too. That's part of it as well, and, man, I'm so pumped on that. I just am. And it's like one of those things where when you find your ministry, man, or when God gives you, rather, it's like it's so hand tailored to who you are, to your being, and your core. And I'm super excited. I want to do, like, even quarterly, if we can do trips. Like, I'm not talking about just going to Colorado. I'm talking to going to these places, man. Like doing whitewater rafting the Colorado River down the Grand Canyon. I'm talking about like in Kentucky, there's called the Massive, or it's like this, I think it's called the Massive. It's a 3-day canoe trip into a cave where you were literally camping in the cave on the river, in the cave in the darkness for it's a 3-day trip through a cave.
Holy moly.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like,
where is that?
That's in Kentucky.
So I'll tell you what, when I used to live in Houston, so it was roughly around, so about 2009 was when things kind of shifted for me. I got out of a relationship, and rather than staying sober, I went out and started turning into an idiot again. And but that's all beside the point. What happened is I started hanging out with my buddy Francisco again. He was a high school buddy of mine, and we graduated in 2000. And so this is like 2009, almost a decade later, we started hanging out again. And we're like, man, let's go do some stuff. So living in Houston, we're about 2.5 hours away from Austin.
What's up, Corey Howard?
Yeah, what's up, Corey? Corey's got a kiddo these days.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Congrats.
So we started taking what we were calling impromptu kayaking trips. So we would drive down to San Marcos, which is between San Antonio and Austin. Yeah. And there's the river. There's a bunch of rivers down there where people float. There's the Guadalupe River, and there's New Braunfels, and then there's the Comal. And so just these beautiful, really the rivers stay cool all through the season or through the year. Even in the summer, it's like 68 degrees. So it's like super hot, and people go and float and do all this stuff. But we would drive down there. We get up in the morning 6, we drive in, we do a 7-hour float trip or 7-mile float trip.
Nice.
And then we'd go back and we'd get barbecue and then we go home. Anyways, we started doing that and that was a lot of fun, dude. So my 2 favorite things to do in this world concerning the outdoors is kayaking and hiking mountains.
Yeah, man.
And I want to do that as much as I possibly can.
That's what and that's what this ministry is, man. Like that's all that.
Yeah.
And being in Kansas, we got Arkansas right next to us, which has a bunch of caves, has a bunch of, woods, camping, like mountain biking, kayaking, all of it. And then you got Colorado. We're right in the middle, man, so the sky's the limit. But yeah, I'm birthing this out and I'm so excited for what God's going to do about it, and I know that he's going to do something cool, like super crazy. And I'm going to get to tell the story, but I just get to be the recipient of this and give what's been given to me to other men, and try to help them, through those, overcoming that. And I believe wholeheartedly with everything in my being, man, like put them into connectivity with creation, and give them something to conquer. Like I said.
So at this point, really, this is just kind of a local ministry. What are we talking about eventually? Because we're talking about this on the podcast. What if there's some guy that's like in Kentucky who says, "Hey, I want to meet you guys in Colorado." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
what if there's somebody listening to the podcast? It's like, man, I need that, dude. Hit me up, son.
Yeah. saltydogspodcast@gmail.com.
Or just hit me up on the IG, TabbyTav86.
How do you spell it?
TavyTav86.
On Instagram.
On IG.
Yeah. And honestly, this isn't a pitch.
No, it's not.
We're just kind of sharing our heart about what's.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this real quick. What are we going to be doing in India, man?
Ooh. That's another one of those things, man. Like, there's uncertainty there. And see, this is what I'm toying. This is the idea that I'm toying. This is like a little teaser for the next blog. I'm toying with this idea of uncertainty and how biologically and in our being and what's been passed down to us from our primitive roots, man, uncertainty is associated with being lost. You know what I mean? And so it incites fear and anxiety, but it can also be a really freeing experience. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of uncertainty, man. I don't know what we're going to do. Yeah. We got one hookup that Christine was talking about in the same region that I went to, because man, when I went there last time, that was total uncertainty, bro. Like I went there by myself. You guys kissed me, set me onto the plane, dude. And the next thing I know, I was in Hyderabad with machine gun nests and like 1 million people, and you can't even talk about social distancing. It doesn't exist there, bro.
Bro, you've been, in your life, you've been through some stuff, but you've been some places, bro.
Yeah, dude.
You've been some places. You lived in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You went to Teen Challenge.
Yeah.
You were working up in the Northeast, had some crazy stuff happen to you, man.
Yeah,
and
dude. Traveling
the United States, doing your tree stuff, spelunked
dude.
in a cave in Georgia, climbing mountains, going to India. Dude,
I love it.
Think about that, man.
I know. And when I think about that, and I think about, all, because every place you go to, and this is why I love traveling, because even if you go town to town, every place has their own little vibe, their own little feel, right? And so when you go to those places, and I love taking trips. I do because you gain a new experience, and you get to like delve into another culture, like, even if it's because the cultures are different, man, from state to state. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
It's such a different thing.
It's
and
like
you always take something, from it, and it broadens your perspective, and it makes you just, in my mind, more balanced at the way that you perceive things. Because I think like ignorance and just talking about like racism and, even religious fanatics, a lot of those people haven't been anywhere. That's what they've always known, man, rather than broaden their perspective, and it makes you a more rounded person. It makes you more able to accept other people, you know what I mean? Because you meet other people and you gain a new experience.
Well, one of the things that we haven't even really touched on we're talking about getting out of nature and getting with some
Hold on
other
real
guys.
quick.
Go ahead.
Wes Grau, the IG account is Tavy, Tavy, Tav, TAV86, no spaces. Hit me up.
TAVY,
Tabby Tav 86.
What does that even mean? Like Tavares?
Dude, when I was in the Army,
Tav?
dude, they called me Tavy. That was just because they didn't want to say my last name,
Oh,
so
all right.
they just stuck. So
Yeah, that's
just like,
yeah,
whatever.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
They used to call me Vanilla Wafer.
Well, you're definitely not vanilla. Well, I guess well.
I'm an Oreo.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Anyways, so we didn't even hit on the whole aspect of finding the Lord in nature, man. Like
where we're going to. I mean, this might be a really long podcast, dude. I'm down. Do you know?
Well, that's part of it, man. Is getting out there. Like one of the things that I remember the most, because you're talking about experiencing different things and going all over the place and worldview and that kind of stuff. But man, there's creation I've never seen.
Right.
Like you've seen into a pit and a waterfall, and you've seen the peaks of mountains, and you've been 100 and how many feet into a tree?
176.
176 feet on a tree up in the air. Like, bro, you've been some places.
I know, man.
But I mean, there's all kinds of beauty that I've not even been able to lay my eyes on.
It's overwhelming, man. And I think about that sometimes. Like I climb up a tree, and I'll just look where I'm at, and I'm like, you know what, like. Nobody's ever seen this tree from this perspective. And to me, that's a beautiful thing,
Yeah,
it's
bro.
Like, or when you're 176 feet up, dude, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
You're like, nobody's ever seen this.
You've never been able to.
Never seen this tree like that. And to me, that's a really special experience.
For sure. But but part of this is, again, getting out into nature. And I mean, I'm telling you, there's just something majestic about seeing the vast, crazy. I mean, the beauty of God's creation,
and that verse, man. Like, look to the earth; it'll teach you all things. Like, and the things that I have taken from climbing trees and tree biology and caving and climbing. It's like, man, there's you could so much relate spiritually. That's why I'm saying, like, I attribute. Not only to God, like doing what he does in my life, because he's always moved, man. He's moved mountains for me time and time again. You've seen it, everybody's seen it, and he's going to move this mountain again, dude. I know this mountain that I'm seeing, and that's another thing that I wanted to talk about too. We'll get into that as well. These mountains that are in our way, you know what I mean? Like moving mountains, man. Sometimes the only way to move it's to ascend that bad boy, and that's a mountain for you. That's a personal mountain for you to climb that God has given you. And that's a special thing. And when we look at these mountains in our lives and we start shrinking back, or we fall into being lethargic, or like we don't climb it, he's given us something. It's an opportunity to do something. It's an opportunity to summit that mountain where he wants you to climb to. I mean, yes, he comes to us, but he's like, come on, son. He is spurring us on. He's like, climb. Like, you can do this. You can do this. You're almost there. Because what happens is when you're alpining or you're climbing, if you've climbed a pitch or you climb to a peak that nobody has ever accessed, you get to name that peak. You get to name it. And so, that to me blew my mind, is because when these mountains that God gives us are mountains nobody's ever climbed before, and it's specifically tailored for you. Right. And when you climb that mountain, and yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to be dangerous in a lot of ways. It's sometimes it's not safe, and God doesn't call us to a life of safety. He calls us to a life of complete and absolute trust in him. Right. And so we don't play it safe when we're climbing these mountains, even spiritually, right? It's going to be hard. It's going to be arduous. It's going to be, burly. It's going to be gnarly, but when you get to the top of that mountain that God gave to you personally, you get to experience him in another way that nobody ever has. And you get to name him that in your life. Well,
the most important thing that I think that you just said was that you get to experience him.
Yeah.
Because, and I've said this probably a million times on this podcast, but there's a difference between knowing about God and knowing God.
Yeah.
There's a difference between hearing that God is good and experiencing God's goodness.
Right. And I think we got it all up here, man.
It's all head knowledge
right here, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that goes in with the waterfall. Remember what we were talking about, the waterfall? About when we got to the waterfall, experiencing that rather than reading somebody's excerpt about it.
Exactly. Right. So Tell
us about it, Jason.
So the thing is, I've put it this way before, and I'll get back to the waterfall, but I could send somebody to Hawaii.com to go. I could send someone to Hawaii.com and say, hey, you should go experience Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you could watch videos. You could even listen to the sounds of the island. You could read all the reviews. You could memorize all the information about Hawaii. But until you get off that plane and then you step foot on that island and you step foot on the sand and get in the water and do the snorkeling and do the hiking, and bro, you have no idea.
It's a different thing.
You have no idea,
Yeah.
right? Taste and see, man. Just don't read and
about
think.
it. Don't read the recipe, bro. Taste and see that.
Yeah, taste and see. Don't read. Exactly, right?
know?
So with that waterfall, bro, so we're
That was a special experience.
it was
that
special.
was great, man.
So we started early morning. It was nice and cool. The more we got into the late morning and early afternoon, it was getting hotter and hotter. Well, we're tired. I'm already sweating. I don't even think you busted a sweat, but we're walking. We're like, oh, we want to get to the top, but then you hear the water, and then you see a sign that says, waterfall this way, and you're like, bro, we got to do it. So you get down there, and the closer you get to the water, the cooler it feels and the louder it gets. Yeah. So you're down there on the bank on the rock, and you're reaching down, and you're putting your hand in the water, and it's rushing by, and it's cool. It's not hot anymore. Yeah. It's nice and cool. It's refreshing. There's the mist, and you're like exhilarated and reinvigorated.
Yeah.
And you're breathing in the cool air. You're taking pictures, like you're listening to the sound of the rushing water.
You're pulling a hydro flask out of the...
Yeah, that's what you did. Right. So you're experiencing this waterfall, and then we hiked back up and got back on the trail, and then we left the waterfall behind.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the waterfall. I'm trying to describe my experience. We have videos, we have pictures, but it's nothing like being there.
We should post some of those pictures.
Yeah, we should.
We should.
Gotta throw them on our. We'll put them on. On our blog post. So when we release an episode, we make a blog post. Yeah. So we'll drop some of those images in, and that'll be pretty cool for people to see. But again, it's not gonna serve it justice.
Right.
It's the experiencing of that. And then the other thing that you see how excited I got telling this story?
Dude.
It's life-giving, man. So we're standing there and the water's rushing by. It's loud. It's cool. I feel like I'm full of life, man. Like I got a second wind, and I just think to myself, like scripture says, his voice is like the sound of many rushing waters. And so I just close my eyes and I'm like, man, the Lord's voice sounds something like this, right?
And we just listened,
even the person who wrote that in the scripture had experienced the Lord's voice in a way that it sounded like many rushing waters.
Right.
Ascribed something to it and just tried to describe it so that you could maybe understand that. So I could sit here and think about the sound of many rushing waters, and that's very different than me actually sitting by a place where there's rushing water and then trying to, tap into that. It's just completely different, man.
Yeah, and we were talking about that comparison, with scripture, experiencing God and and reading somebody else's account of their experience of God.
Oh, it's brutal.
It is, but. I mean, we're not bashing on the Bible. We're not going into that. You know what I mean?
It's not that they're not valid experiences.
We are glad that they wrote those experiences down. But how often do we just go to scripture and just read it, internalize it in our mind, and don't experience that, man? I believe wholeheartedly that God wants to be experienced. He wants to extend his hand. He wants to dwell inside of us. He wants us to experience him. And and this is part of the reason for a long time of my life, man, of being just not satisfied, because I hadn't experienced it. I got all these people telling me all this stuff about him, you know what I mean? But I hadn't experienced it. Mm-hmm. And man, just lately, man, he's been, in order to experience him, to be your comfort, you got to be put in an uncomfortable position.
Right.
For him to be your defender, you've got to be defenseless,
Mm-hmm.
For him to be your hiding place, for him to be those things, you've got to be put in those. And I think sometimes we get so uncomfortable with how uncomfortable it is, but that's the place exactly where you're going to meet him. And how often we don't stray off the path, how often we control things around us out of fear. out of, uncertainty, because we don't want to be uncertain. We want solidity, and we don't want to be disoriented or in a place where we're lost. But it's in being lost and understanding and embracing your lostness that you're found. Right? How can you ever be found like that if you've never been lost like that? Dog, I've been lost like that, and let me tell you, I've been found like that, son. You know what I mean?
Well, remember Paul is talking about his experience with the Lord when he says, take this thorn. And then Jesus says, my flesh is my strength, my power is made perfect in weakness.
Right.
That weakness is the prerequisite for God's power to be manifest in your life.
Correct.
Right. That's why it's blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek, right? Blessed are the humble, or whatever the rest of the Matthew 5 talks about. But it's that same concept of us talking about the only prerequisite, or what is it? The only thing that we limit God with is the amount of emptiness that we bring him.
Dude.
Right. So if we want to be filled, we got to be empty.
Right. And humble. Humility is the prerequisite to that as well. Becoming empty.
He shows grace to the humble.
Becoming empty and becoming nothing so that he can be all in all. You want God to be all in all, you got to empty yourself out. We don't like to do that because of our pride and our arrogance and our spiritual blindness. And yes, I believe Christians can be spiritual blind. I was spiritually blind for a long time. Even though I was a Christian, I was saved. But dude, I was limiting his power in my life because of my pride, my arrogance, and
right. So God shows grace to the humble, but he opposes the proud. When we're prideful, God is opposing us and not giving us grace.
Right.
He withholds that grace if we are not found in a humble state.
Well, we're withholding it from ourselves, essentially. Because it's there for the taking, but it's us.
Right. Yeah, well, he says, therefore, come boldly to the throne.
Boldly.
And so that you may receive mercy and grace in your time of need. Yeah. But you have to go to the throne, right? You have to go in and submit yourself and say, Father, right? It's like Jesus telling the story about the two guys praying. There's the one guy who's like, oh Lord, I'm a sinner. And he beats my chest. He beats his chest. He says, forgive me. And then there's a Pharisee that says, God, thank you that I'm not like that sinner.
Right.
And Jesus is like, who do you think he heard?
Yeah, man. And a lot of us don't want to go to his throne because we're too busy establishing our own. You know what I mean?
Boom.
And
building their own kingdom.
Yeah. And so, but experiencing him, man. And, we experienced him on that mountain. You know what I mean? It was so strong. And like, man, I remember just sitting there listening to that waterfall, man. That was a profound moment for me as well.
Yeah.
It was just like, we were just soaking that in, dude. Like there was essentially we escaped society too. We escaped our obligations to other people. There was no time limit. Dude, we had a whole weekend where we didn't have to do anything. Like, I remember getting back to the campsite, like, what do I want to do now? I don't care, man.
We just went home.
We just stay here. Yeah, we hiked them out and came back. And we were just like sitting there by the fire. I was like, what do you want to do? You want to stay here another? I was like, I don't know, man, whatever you want. And then we just moseyed on home, there was no time limit. There was no time restriction. We didn't have any phone service. We were, you know what I mean? It was just us. We have forced us into a position where we should have been in the first place, which is connectivity with each other. So in this experience, connectivity to God, connectivity to each other, and connectivity to creation, man.
Yeah.
That's what I've been on lately.
It's a big deal.
And that connectivity, it forced us into that place where, and the ministry that was happening between us, like we talked about a lot of stuff, man, that was really, really good. And it ministered to me and it ministered to you.
Yeah.
And how often we miss that in our day-to-day lives. We're so busy, man.
Because we got so much crap.
So much stuff going on. That's one thing I like about India. When we go to India, dude, man, there ain't no, so I was like, they were like, yeah, we'll come pick you up at like 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock rolls around. And they're like, hey, what's up? And I was like, well, I've been waiting here for, the American in me. He like, you said you were going to be here, man. And then like, as I was there longer and longer, it like became that sense of not being obligated to a timetable was freeing,
But man, I hear about this in other countries, and we talked a little bit about this when we hung out the other day. Yes, I just admitted that we're hanging out during the social distancing order and quarantine, but
it was a religious thing.
It was a religious thing. Yeah,
it was a religious gathering.
We were talking about that, how we've taken on this crazy time situation to where there's, we got to be there at a certain time. It's got to be over at a certain time. And how other countries, they say, like you said, 9 o'clock, but then they just show up whenever. And something that I heard the other day, and I've heard this specifically about Africa, is that they'll say, hey, we're having a get together. You should come over. Well, what time is that going to happen? Oh, maybe around noon or whatever. People will show up at 4 or 5 o'clock later on in the day. Well, number one, the people who host this thing already know that they're going to make it like a day-long affair, and that they might say a time, but people are just going to come all day long.
Yeah.
And so their attitude when people show up is that I'm so glad you're here, because they value that time together,
Right.
that relationship. So what happens is we say, hey, I'm having a birthday party from 2 to 4. And then, someone shows up at 3 and it's like, oh, you're late. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, rather than, hey, I'm glad you're here. Or somebody showed up at 4 when it ended, you'd be like, hey, what are you doing here? We ended at 4, not, I'm so glad you're here. Come in and let's hang out.
Right.
It's that idea of hospitality. I've heard so many stories about, in other countries, people will show up to their house and they will cook until all the food's gone, and they'll drink the tea till all the tea's gone, and they'll hang out for hours and hours and hours, because they just have this idea of hospitality,
right,
that we're here to spend time with people and to give and to serve. And man, we're missing that.
Yeah.
We are. To an extent we are.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we honestly, most people
we do
get
that stuff, but
yeah,
but not like that. Though.
Not like that.
And, when I was in India, or, whenever I'd go to the villages, there'd just be nothing to do. You know what I mean? There ain't, bro, where I was at, ain't no TVs. You know what I mean? The kids aren't sitting around playing Game Boys and, TVs and Netflix and just being glued to the television, man. Like, you're just out there. And they were so happy to even receive a baseball bat and some balls. You know what I mean? Like, and they would just be playing outside. And like, I just remember feeling like, what am I supposed to do? Because there wasn't anything to do. It was just to relax and chill with these people. But in my mind, there was an empty space that I needed to fill with something, that I needed to input something, rather than just like resting and relaxing and hanging out with these people, which is what I was there to do in the first place, or I thought I was there to do. But like, then you get there and you do, and you're like, wow, this is completely different than what I had thought this was going to be.
What did it become then? It became about the people, right? It became about the relationship.
It did.
And honestly, in this world, this is all we really have, is each other. Honestly, right? Yeah. All we have are
the rest of it's an illusion, man.
Together.
Yeah. Anything outside, all this technology, all this stuff, all these jobs, all these things that we do, that's fleeting.
Right.
The connection to each other, man, and man, there's an awakening coming. Especially with this pandemic, and God spoke to me very clearly, there's an awakening that's coming. No, not his right. Second coming.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
It's a new era too.
It's a new era. It's a new season. And man, like, we're not even close. I know people want to say, oh my God, the Lord's going to return soon. That's not going to happen soon, man. But what he told me, there's an awakening coming, especially after this pandemic, especially after this stuff, man, a great awakening for the Christian body, that's going to unite the body in oneness to each other, and connectivity to each other, which is what we're talking about right here. Because that's important. And I think that one of the biggest detriments in our lives, and why so many people end up being church hurt, end up, losing relationships, losing marriages, is because nobody wants to connect fully and completely. We're not cleaving to each other the way that we should, because cleaving is not, like I said, a marriage thing. It's, right. Jonathan cleaved to David. It's a soul tie.
That's good.
It's a soul tie to somebody, because you are connected with them on that level. And we're supposed to be connected like that. We are the body of Christ, connected. And nobody wants to connect with you, man, because my wants and my desires are greater to me than actually having to get down and get dirty
with selfishness.
Right. It is selfishness, self-absorbed, just looking out for our own interest. If anything inconveniences me, I'll cut you out. You know what I mean? Like, and how often, we just live disconnected.
Well, let me just tell you, like, I'm guilty of this for sure. I can't think of any situation recently right off the top of my head, but I know that within Christianity, we are constantly, not constantly. How do I want to say this? I need to craft this statement properly. We're not quick to, but we will justify the cutting out of people from our lives based on how they make us feel, or, based on sometimes selfishness. And I don't know that we truly understand oneness, and we truly don't understand agape love, because agape love knows no bounds. There is nothing that disqualifies people from agape love, but we will always say, well, that person's just toxic. You got to cut him out of your life.
Oh, I heard that.
Or that person's this. You got to cut him out of your life. That person's
You're a toxic person.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, I know I don't know. I'm not trying to call people out, but I'm just saying that I'm trying to piggyback on what you're saying, that there's a deeper sense of connectivity. There's a deeper sense of love and communion and oneness to be had by the body of Christ. And so when Kim and Christine and Lisa, and Soren actually went too, they all went to South Africa again. And the theme for that trip was oneness. And I just want to say something about what they're doing with their trip. So, you know, Kim's my wife, Christine is my sister-in-law, Lisa is a good friend of everybody for years and years and years. And then Soren is Christine's son. And so they went to South Africa, and these aren't like normal mission trips. This is their third trip.
Yeah, dude.
And they're going and they're connecting with the body of Christ on deeper levels, and they're accomplishing stuff in the kingdom. They're kingdom building. They're bringing heaven to earth according to God's will, right? Jesus said, "Let us pray your will on earth as it is in heaven." So they're on mission. They're accomplishing stuff. But because of this whole COVID-19 thing, they had to stay in the same place the entire time, which in one sense, you might have thought, oh, well, COVID-19 wrecked our travel plans. Actually, it was God ordained that they would stay in this one place, and that the theme that entire time would be oneness, and that they would be in situations
in one place
with this group of people where they had to work through a bunch of stuff that was keeping them from having the unity with those people. Yeah. And so it's like, imagine, I don't know, Baptists and Pentecostals being stuck in a room for 4 days. It's like, I'm putting you in this place so that you can get over your crap and freaking love one another.
It'd be spirit and truth, right?
You know what I'm saying? Yes, exactly. Yeah. But you see what I'm saying?
No, I do.
It's and there's a relationship in the way that we work through our differences. Right. We work through this crap instead of breaking off into denominations. Right.
And that's not unity. You know?
Well, unity in doctrine. They'll claim unity in around Christ, but the doctrine splits big time. It happens. Did you know that there's, man, I can't even think of the amount, but there's some thousands of different denominations and sects of Christianity? Yeah. Thousands of reasons for the body to split over what some would call essential, but probably non-essential doctrine. Right. It's just crazy, man.
It is. And that's not unity in my mind. And that's what I'm saying. Like this awakening that's coming, man, I'll prophesy all day long, whatever, man. You know, that the awakening is going to unify the body. You know, denominations be thrown out the window, man. You know, there's something that's coming and it's going to be amazing. And, but yeah, speaking to just like love, like we were talking about, I know we're getting off track from our original intent, but whatever, you know.
To truly open yourself up to connection is to open yourself up to be burdened. Correct. Is what Chris Cerna says. Hey, he's with us.
He is with us. We replaced you, Chris.
That's right. El Pingüino del Norte. Yeah.
But man, there's a love, you know, when we're talking about like, you know, toxic, man, like everybody uses that freaking phrase now, like that came in recently, you know what I mean? Toxic, you know, but how to identify toxic people in your life. It's dude, there's a love that we can have, that we can display, you know, a choice that we can make, you know, there's a love that conquers the multitude of sins. Ooh. You know what I mean? Like, therefore I'll cut you out. No, man, like we're supposed to live, you know, what Derek Shore told me is cruciformed life, you know, like Christ, I'll recap it for you. It was like Christ on the cross when he didn't have a defensive posture. He had his arms open wide, open to every attack, open to every hurt, man. And there's a love that conquers the multitude of sins, man. Our hearts are hard. That's the problem. We excuse our hardness of heart by claiming, oh, well, that's just, you know, blah, 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 this
you know,
and that.
One of the most powerful things that I remember that Jesus said was when he was on the cross and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Right. And I think about that, and obviously one of the reasons he's able to forgive them is because he's Jesus. But that statement, they know not what they do, like even in the utmost and purest evil of wishing murder upon a man and them saying, crucify him. We want him to be crucified. Right. We want him to die. And as he's hanging on the cross dying, he's saying they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like they have no idea what they're asking for. They have no idea the pain that they've caused. They have, you know what I'm saying? They know not what they do. Even though he had to be crucified, right? He's still saying, forgive them, because they don't get it. Most often, people don't truly understand the pain that they cause people. And I think that we think that people are innately evil and that they have it out for us. And so they do these things to us and we just say, well, you know what? I'm just not going to have anything to do with them because they've caused me too much pain and they're just a terrible person. Actually, they don't know the pain that they're causing you, because this is why Jesus says to love others or do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Right.
Love others as you love yourself. Because if we can do unto others as we would have them do unto you, we would never cause the amount of pain that we're causing them, because we've been through such pain in our own lives that we would never wish on people, right? You would say that. I don't wish that pain on anybody.
Yeah.
And so we can say we don't wish that pain on anybody, but sometimes our actions actually put that pain on people, but we don't even realize that's what's happening.
Exactly.
And so that's where forgiveness is born, is when we realize they just don't even understand. Right. They don't get what they're doing. I'm going to forgive them because they're essentially ignorant in the way that they're acting and the pain that they're causing. They have no clue.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't wish it on them either. Or you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know? It's crazy.
Dude.
That's a hard place to get, though, man, to get to the place to where you say, and sometimes I feel like I really understand justice and mercy, because I'm like,
how many times, Lord, should I forgive my brother? I mean, there's got to be a limit, right? Like, he does this and this and this over and over and over again, but there's got to be a limit where I got to cut it off and say, hey, man, enough's enough. I'm bouncing, right?
He's like, 70 times 7,
talking
homie.
about like 70 times 7, bro.
Yeah. Over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Never-ending love gives never-ending forgiveness.
Right. For you have not resisted temptation to the point of shedding blood.
Right. So why don't you sit down? Be humble.
Take a seat, homie.
Sit down, dude.
Yeah, interesting. That's funny. Wes Grouse says, just a thought about your analogy of Pentecostal and Baptist in the same room. They would come out as Bapticostals. Or Penetists.
Penetists.
Anyways.
So back to, this where we were going with Ascension Ministries and the mountain, and the personal mountain that God gives you, and just that journey, and even to the cave, man, like that cave experience, man, I can't, hopefully someday you'll be able to do something like that with me, man, because that'd
be awesome.
It was so, it's hard to even explain, man. Like,
and you want to so badly, but it's not going to serve it justice.
Yeah, you just can't.
You're just going to have to keep blogging about it.
And the principles that I learned from it, man. Dude, I'm going to blog about it. Yeah, that's what
you should just go ahead and blog about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I don't want to ruin it because I've got like 3 pages written down. So
let's kind of wrap things up on this note with Ascension Ministry for broken men. So this right now, this is an idea. It's a vision the Lord's given you. It's something you're moving towards.
The litmus test is in June.
Right. So we're in June. We've got some guys going. We're going to go summit the mountain, or conquer the Phantom Terrace.
Yeah.
But what do you see as how some of that's going to play out? Is it going to become like a formal ministry where there's like a logo and a website and like, or what's going to be happening with this thing? Or are you going to open it up to everybody, or is it just going to stay like,
I think, man,
referral?
I'm in a place right now just of complete trust, like that. Go read the Anchor blog, or that's where I'm at, man. I'm completely trusting him. I believe that he's going to bring the people that need to be a part of it. I believe he's going to bring the guys that need it. And I want this thing, dude, I don't want to come into ministry with any preconceived notion of how it should operate.
Sure.
I'm just going to walk, and he's giving me the burden for it. And he's going to give me the people. He's going going to give me the resources.
Right.
He's going to do it all because it's his. It's not mine. I just get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And but I see something.
Sure.
I see something, man. I in the vision that I have, man, I see men being healed from divorce hurt, man. I see men like breaking chains, God breaking chains, where men are going to walk off that mountain and never touch a drug or alcohol ever again, son.
Yes.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
I see the oppressed and the depressed, walking off that mountain with a new sense of worthiness, worthy because God called them worthy, you know, and rising up out of shame and fear, you know, and walking off that mountain with their heads held high as a son of God, man. That's what I feel man.
Just in my personal life, I'm always desiring to go do these kinds of things and get out there.
It's in our nature, dude.
Yeah. Well, for 2 years, man, I wanted to go, and things were crazy. I can't even tell you how I couldn't plan a trip in 2 years. And I asked for people around me, couldn't get dates together. It just didn't work out, man. But we finally got out there. And when I got out there again and I came back and I told my wife, I said, we have to take a trip like this at least once a year. Like,
it is so,
I've got to get away. It's
dude,
so
Jesus
good for
he was like, man, he was in the hustle bustle, and every day he's like, man, I need to get away from these mofos. He went to the mountain, to pray and to be alone because, dude, it draws us. It cries out to us, man. Like you
just said Jesus said mofos.
No, he didn't. Brofos. How about that? So, he's like, I got to get away from these people, man. He knew the importance of getting away. And that cries it calls out to us, man. Like we are intrinsically tied to creation. You know what I mean?
We've taken that
from the dust you were formed. This is the dust is in our blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's in our bodies, man.
Right. The same materials that the mountains and everything organic is made from.
We're 80% water.
Right. But the difference is that we've got the Spirit of God breathed into us to give us life and make us a person.
All the elements dude, we're connected to that, man, and it calls to us, dude. And that's why I believe it's so healing, because it is connectivity to original, like the garden, man.
Well, we've taken that idea. And we said, well, as was his custom, Jesus got away in the morning and he, went to the mountain to pray and yeah, there's some principle there. We can say, oh, we got to have our daily time and we get away and rest and do these things. And all that's true. But bro, to actually go get away and go get on a mountain,
dude,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's
spiritual,
big time, big time
and
spiritual.
It's a big thing spiritually too.
Yeah. There's something about it, man.
And dude, I'm so excited for the ministry, man. I'm glad we're doing it, and, man, more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
I'm already buying gear. Like, I'm gonna go buy my hammock, and I'll probably buy a tent. I gotta buy some hiking.
Remember, you bought a ski pole for your hiking stick?
I have that ski pole. It's here in the studio. I'll probably take it back, bro. I'll put stickers on it, write dates on it and stuff.
Dude. You might as well
turn it into a not a relic, but a totem.
You were sadly unprepared, man.
Dude, I was woefully unprepared.
Yeah.
You were laughing at me because I was hiking in like Adidas shoes or something.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Anyways, well, I'm excited. I'm gearing up too, man, and I really, like, you were given vision for that. I can just imagine the kind of conversations that we're going to have as we're walking along campsite,
by the fire, in the dude, car, like dude, on the night before, man. Like, that's what I believe, because and I worship too, man. And I've been writing a lot, dude, and like, just God's putting songs in my heart, man. And like, this is it, man. Like, getting together, kumbaya on, you know what I mean? Around the fireside, and then the next morning getting up early and doing it.
Yeah, I got some comments flooding in.
Tony Lee. What's Tony Lee doing, man? Dude, Tony Lee, bro. I want to tell you, this is crazy, because I literally was thinking about you today. I was like, man, I was wondering what that guy was doing. I literally thought about you today, and lo and behold, here you are.
There he is. Daniel
Smith
says, write it. Do it, bro.
Don't tell me what to do.
Write
Daniel.
that damn blog.
So, anyways, yeah, man.
Good stuff, man. I'm excited. Yeah. And I think, here's what I think. I think there are guys listening to this, and even people we know, that if we were to just say the word, they'd say, bet, let's go.
Dude, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I want it to be like too. You know what I mean? And like I said, when I gave out my IG, if you guys are interested in something like that, you want to link up, man, like I'm telling you, bro, we can go. Casey Tavares ain't got nothing but time now, dude. So it's like, we can plan those trips, and man, hit me up. I'm telling you, because I want to do these trips quarterly or semi-annual, like, and get it done, man. Hit me up,
I would go on to a year spring and early fall late summer.
I'm gonna map these trips out, and if you want to go,
late summer.
I'm telling you, if this is something that is pricking your heart, this is what this is for. You can come with me. I'm telling you, you can come.
That's what's up.
Yeah, exactly. So
legit.
That was a good podcast, honestly.
I would say so.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we'll call it. Appreciate you guys listening and watching. You know the deal. SaltyDogsPodcast.com. Go check out the blog. Be on the lookout for Casey's Lessons from the Cave Part 2.
Yeah, go listen to go read Part 1, man. Yeah, I'm proud of that.
Yeah, we got some good stuff going on the blog, man. We've also been doing some bonus stuff, some collaboration with some other podcasts, other podcasters, and anyways, it's been cool to continue connect and put out media.
Yeah, for sure. Again, man, you can. I really feel like giving my information out, not my real personal information, but you can, if you want to write this down and get a hold of me, drop me a line. I mean, even to have a conversation, or if you're interested in doing a trip like that, you can reach me again on Instagram at TavyTav86. So that's TAVY 86 on Instagram, and then also I'll put my personal email out there. I don't really care. It's Casey Tavares, CASEY as in Victor ARES at iCloud.com. No spaces. Dude, drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you. Man, I'm just excited. I'm excited about this new season. I'm excited about this ministry starting up. And, love you guys. Mad love for sure.
Sweet deal, man.
Yep.
All right. Salty Dogs out.
Oh.